What is this program all about and how it sort of came about? It came about because there was a need through the Department of Industry, Innovation and Science to make sure that Australian businesses are able to deal with the challenges of the future. And from our observation, Earl and I work a lot with industries, Australian industries, or members, or producers, or suppliers, whatever you want to call them. People who, I guess, deliver into retail environments. And one of the key challenges there has been that people are trying, organizations are trying to meet the level of automation that those retailers have set. Is this something that you have experienced? Delivering into a automated warehouse. Who here would deal with some of the major retailers? How do you find dealing with them?
It's pretty restrictive, I suppose, or compliance is pretty important.
Compliance is pretty important. Is that the common theme around? Have you were nodding before, do you deal with some of the major?
Retail environment, but when you said major warehouses, we haven't done a lot of that.
Okay. So who do you deliver to?
A lot of the independent IGAs, cafes, recently dealt with Spotless, but couldn't go ahead because of some of the compliance things.
Okay. And I know this is on tape, so I'm going to take a bit of a risk here to say this. At the end of the day, as a country, as an economy, as a group, as a tribe, as a bunch of people, we've got to decide which way we're going to go with automation. And one of the story that Kim told, if I may use it in the future in other training sessions, I think it's a very telling story. It's a story that I hear all the time. And that is when organizations are limited, but whatever the case may be, and I think it goes back to a fear of automation, a fear of technology, and an inability to deal with those kind of challenges. We feel comfortable with the way we've been doing this. And the thing is that I think that's a little bit outside the experience of Australia. If you look at that board there, I was so impressed, the honour roll of the people who fought in those two world wars. Australia was much, much smaller. There were only 4 million people back in the World War I. And Australia took such enormous I guess, risk to go out in the Western Front and Gallipoli and all these places, a tiny country, you know, in the middle of nowhere, turning up in Europe and doing amazing things, you know, and we punch well above our weight, as you well know. So therefore, I think we have the capability, and that's what I'd like to sort of challenge everybody in the room to think about how we can improve the way we do things and avoid the situation, which I think there is a risk, and Kim unpacked it, I think, quite well, of being left behind because the rest of the world is moving ahead. So today's program is all about supporting the Australian government and the Entrepreneurs Program, and there are some key points there, and we have a training pack with you that you can take notes on and have a look at some of the points that we are talking about. So, and Food Innovation Australia is another partner here in this program, and it's about sharing knowledge, building capability and creating connections. That middle one, building capability, for me is the most important one, because this is where we're going to win or lose the game. So today we have a number of images and film clips and all the rest. We are not promoting anything other than the core concept here. We're using Creative Commons to protect copyright and so forth. So today is about educating participants in this workshop about the benefits of automation. What it is like to deliver into an automated warehouse and what is an automated warehouse. To also give you a little bit of understanding of the requirements, the benefits, the challenges, applying urgency and compliance. But speaking personally, I just want you to remove the fear that this is a big black box that I don't know how it works, and we hear that all the time because even when yesterday we had a training session here in Perth with members. We had about 18 odd members, where we were, these individual companies are implementing the technologies that we have, like barcoding. And one or two people told me, said, oh, all this fandangled technology, namely the barcode. And I said, it's been around for 50 years. It's not something brand new, you know. So therefore, we need to think about that some of the things that we consider new are not new at all. Yeah? And I'm going to break convention, and I would like to play a short video, and which is not part of this, but we've decided to add it, and have a look at what one major online retailer does, and tell me if it surprises you or not. So, what was surprising about this? Were you surprised? Was anybody surprised? Did you expect it? Okay, so what was surprising?
That the products weren't in the same area.
Yeah.
Exactly what it said.
I think we hear a lot about like 5S and things like that, where everything has to be in certain places and together and accessible.
So would you describe this as a disruptive kind of warehouse? The Uber of warehouses, a bit? Yeah? So, and what were some of the technologies, sorry, sir?
Organised chaos.
Organised chaos, thank you. Your name? Mark, thank you, Mark. Organised chaos. But what actually helps the organised chaos deliver the ice cream before the ice cream melts? Technology, yeah? A level of technology. So you saw scanners, obviously they've got some sort of fancy mainframe that works out their best route. Why do you think they're doing it this way? Why is it this way that they decided to sort out the warehouse, which is unexpected and disruptive and all the rest?
They value the time taken to pick orders more than systemization of their shelf.
Absolutely. Your name, sorry? James. And why is this model, do you think, better? What are the benefits of this model?
Because you cut down the initial step of storing.
Yes, very good. What else?
That's bottlenecks.
Yes, it removes bottlenecks. It actually, the computer system can work out the optimum route of picking without wasting time walking around. And it's all enabled by a level of technology. Now, I'm not suggesting for 1 minute you become Amazon. Yeah? You may not want to become Amazon. But the point here is, think outside the box. And think about how we can develop technologies and start small. And this is what today is all about giving you some first steps, but more importantly, changing the mindset. Yeah? So let's move ahead with this. So it's in different sections, even though we're kind of throwing out the rule book today, but we're in WA and things are relaxed here and it's wonderful. So we have an awareness, we have the opportunity, we have the challenges, we have how you can be assisted and how you can review your progress and what are some of the steps. And Earl and I, who are avid watchers of reality TV, because it helps us in our training, we're going to play 2 games today. So they're inspired by the Great Survivor game, and so we're going to use that as a metaphor, and then we're going to have the chase. It's a bit like Channel 7, you know, that sort of thing. So we're going to have a quiz at the end to just give you the ability to consolidate some of the things that we've learned today. Right. So who are we? There's 3 of us really that are in this from a GS1 perspective, Earl, myself, and John Szabo. So Gabor, another good Hungarian name up there. And he's a nationalistic kind of proud Hungarian. Anyway, he's Australian born, but doesn't matter. But he drives us nuts telling us about Hungary, how fabulous it is, which it is, I've been there. So what we do is we operate around Australia. This program is going to run to the end of this financial year. So we're doing lots and lots of training sessions around Australia, and it's wonderful because we are meeting companies like you and helping individual organizations take a few steps into their future. So what we are talking about, the supply chain, and I know that given the geography here, you might not be able to see this, but have a look at your notes. We are talking about the end-to-end supply chain. And ultimately, if you were to look at the supply chain, and this is the theory part, okay? So this is setting the scene and giving you the big picture. Unless we give you the big picture, we can't go to the next step. So, from a big picture point of view, we've got the sourcing and producing. Then we've got the receiving and the consolidating. And then we have the distribution. Now, each one of those 3 steps have their own sub-steps within it, and the purpose today is not to go through with excruciating detail to unpack every one of those, because that's not really the object of what we're trying to do. Suffice it to say that every one of those torch lights that is shining down involves a level of movement of goods and movement of data. Now, the balancing act between movement of goods and movement of data is an important one. Can anybody guess why? Why is it important? Why should we care about data? Let's say, get the box there, I don't care.
Accuracy.
Accuracy, yep.
Visibility.
Visibility. Traceability, very good. So all these ability things are good, but let me boil it down for you, and this is from my own personal experience. Business owners need to make business decisions. Business decisions need to be based on information. Information is derived from data. Data needs to be captured in the field, and then we have 2 options. One option, capture the data manually. So, have spreadsheets, have manual sources of the data, handwrite things. Yesterday we had a few people who said, in the warehouse we handwrite everything, you know. Or introduce a level of automation to go forward. And that level of automation will allow you, with minimum investment here, this is important because technologies like that, being 50 years old now, like scanning and all these sort of things, can be implemented quite reasonably with a reasonably low investment. And by the way, you can get support from governments and other industry bodies, whether that's in kind or money or expertise or whatever. And Gabor and the guys and Kim and all the rest, I mean, I can see here a whole lot of infrastructure, a whole lot of people, am I right, Kim? Who are willing and able to help you. So this is what we're talking about. At the end of the day, data turns into information which helps us make business decisions. So ultimately, Australian businesses are asked to deliver into warehouses, and primarily the big guys in town, Coles, Woolworths, Metcash, IGA, Amazon now, .com.au, they have a level of automation in their warehouse. Now, why do you think they have a level of automation in the warehouse? Is it to torture their beloved suppliers? Even though it kind of seems like it sometimes. But is it because of that? Why? Efficiency and effectiveness, reduce costs, because ultimately the consumers are expecting lower prices, and already we know that the online environment is challenging the physical in-store experience. So therefore, this is not about necessarily upsetting their supplier base. It's about their own survival. So the role of the warehouse really is a giant traffic control center, if you like. We have inputs and we have outputs. And in the meanwhile, we do a whole lot of activities in there. We can pick and pack, we can create pallets, we have staff, we have inbound transport, outbound, we have a level of occupational health and safety, because that's a responsibility, of course, that every employer has. And we are managing not only the physical flow, but also the data flow that I mentioned before. So things like invoices are being paid, or transfer documents, or safety documents against particular foods or particular products if that's necessary. So there's a whole lot of admin plus the physicality of moving things around. So to sort out those functions, and this is important for us to give you a bit of an insight of what's like inside those warehouses, is those functions can be a bit mumbo jumbo. So what we want to do is we want to sort them out. And Earl and I love buckets. Well, every trainer loves buckets, you know. We love color and we love to put things in specific categories to give you an understanding and to simplify something that's a little bit more complex. So we have the operational aspects of this. And the operational aspects is order processing, receiving, put away, a whole lot of things that are physical and the eye can see. Then we have a whole lot of technology considerations, technology aspects in a warehouse. And Australian warehouses of the major retailers have some fancy technology. A little bit like Amazon, not as fancy as that, fuzzy logic and all that kind of stuff, but they do have an ERP system, enterprise resource planning. Do you know what that is? ERP, have you heard of ERPs? No? Okay. An ERP system is a software. Think Microsoft Office, right? So it's software, plug it in to a computer, and it brings together different elements of your business. The financial element, the supply chain element, you know, might be a human resources element like your payroll. So an ERP system is enterprise resource planning. It's kind of like Omni software, you know, a little bit of everything that runs the operations of a business. So they have that. And they might have a warehouse management system as well. So that's kind of self-defining, yeah? So warehouse management system, the way we operate the warehouse. And it could be as fancy as having, you know, auto-scheduling of staff. You know, so the computer thinks, okay, 12 orders are booked for tomorrow morning. I better get more staff in because we're going to kind of be busy on the dock and we're going to clear the dock. Those kind of decisions might be made automatically by computers. But we have technology. And then we've got the data flow. And the data flow is where Earl and I are quite passionate about, and being the geeky kind of barcode people, you expect nothing less of us. So this is about moving the data around between trading partners, and it's based on a number of fundamental kind of concepts. Number one, identification. Number two, capturing the data. Number three, sharing the data. So identification, simple. Kim, today you had a participant list, right? So everybody's identified by name. And when people turn up, we tick them off. So, off the list, right? So what we do is we identify and capture the fact by a manual tick that they have physically arrived. The department gave instructions on where this theatre is. So there's a physical address. So think about all these things, they're all part of identification that we do. But because it happens in daily life, people don't think about it. And then finally, we have the sharing of the data. Ultimately, Kim, I'm sure that the list of the participants will go to some other people, will be shared within the Australian business group, I would imagine. So data will be shared as well. So think about those elements. And something else that I mentioned to people yesterday, how many people here use scanning or technology, identification and capture to put away their stock in the warehouse? Be honest. Or how many people, more importantly, run a manual warehouse, completely manual warehouse? Thank you for your honesty. You're not alone. There's many, many people with that. So basically, we don't, the computer doesn't, there's no computer to connect the location with the product. Am I right? Right, okay. Many nods. Yesterday, didn't make myself terribly unpopular, but I challenged people to say, one of the things that I personally learned as a 6-year-old, 7-year-old, when I went to school, my dad took me by the hand and took me to school, and then some lovely primary school teacher took me to the library and said, Terry, listen, to find a book here, we have given codes to the books. We've identified the books, and we've identified locations. So to find the book, you need to punch something in a computer over there. And they were like the old ones with the blinking green screen. Do you remember those? And you need to, and I sort of as a 6-year-old got the connection of, okay, many books, I have to look to find, Pinocchio. I've really got to look through every single book here. Or I type in Pinocchio in some computer and will tell me, go to location 675, that kind of thing. And these are things that we learn early on, I think you would agree, and then we don't implement them, later on in life, when things happen, and then we're quite happy to say, well, it's over there, or John knows where the stock is because, it's just easier, or apparently easier. Can you understand my metaphor? Do you know where I'm coming from? Okay. So I'll leave you with that thought. This is a short video collaboration between GS1 Australia and Woolworths on the automation warehouse, and there's some fancy words in there. ASN. Who's heard of an ASN? Advanced Shipment Notice. Okay. EDI. Who's heard of EDI? Yeah. Electronic data interchange. Well, electronic data interchange exchanges a number of documents, and an ASN is one of those automated documents. So it goes like this. I create a purchase order, which I'm Woolworths, and I create a purchase order, I send it to Mark, right? And that document is electronic. It goes straight into the computer system of Mark's business, and he does a pick and pack. And as a result of the pick and pack, which is typically done by scanning, this is not rocket science, right? This technology has been going on for about 40 years. So what happens is, then the pick and pack, that electronic pick and pack creates an online document which is called an ASN, Advanced Shipment Notice. So it's advanced, not advanced because it's super duper technology, it's in advance. It's notifying in advance the shipment that's about to turn up. So when I'm at the other end, Mark does all the good job, packs and all the rest, and whacks a couple of barcodes on the pallets with unique identifiers that are international, and uniquely identify that particular pallet moving across the supply chain. And when it gets to Woolworths, they go ka-ching, scan it. The scanning and the unique identifier on the pallet evokes that document electronically. So there is an electronic match. So instead of this, which is purchase order, invoice, physical goods, and trying to match 3 documents, it's all done electronically. Look, Mum, no hands. And if you're wondering what that is, next time you do the grocery shopping, try to compare 100 items on your shopping list with the receipt that you get and the physical goods, and try to line them up. Do it. And you see how long it takes. It sounds kind of quick, but it's not. Yeah? And all that is done electronically. So you need to start thinking about some of the solutions that will ultimately improve the way you do things internally and how you can service better your clients. And for those who are sitting here thinking, fancy trainer talking about lots and lots of money, can I share one thing with you? The money that you will invest, it's an investment, is how long is a piece of string? Yeah? And this is what, as a business, you need to balance. I'll bring back the efficiency and the effectiveness. What makes sense for your business? One thing does not make sense for your business. Do nothing. Yeah? So you've got to be able to take the next step and introduce a level of technology that will assist you into meeting not only the requirements of your trading partners and start building businesses. So Mark, you know, James, I'm sorry, James. Mark was over there. I'm sorry, apologies. So, James, it would be great if in 12 months' time you're able to deliver to anyone. Doesn't matter how fancy they are, yeah? It would be, and I know that it will be a difficult path, but this is something that needs to occur. It needs to occur because modernity is not going to go away. Technology is not going to go away. Yeah? So this is, I guess, what we want to share with you. And the types of warehouses that you need to respond to are listed up there. Any warehouse that any type of warehouse you do not understand. That you think, what does that mean?
Reverse logistics.
Excellent. Reverse logistics. Oh.
I think if we take, if we consider what reverse logistics actually is, it is starting from the end of the supply chain and working back to the front of the supply chain. So in reverse logistics, you actually have a lot of returns management. And the returns could be the pure returns of goods and handling goods that are actually returned from your customer back to you, to a warehouse, or to a store, or at the same time, how you actually manage waste and recycling within the supply chain.
Excellent. So, an example of reverse logistics might be LG managing the returns of faulty LCD screens back to them. So, supply chain in reverse. Next, anybody else? Bonded. Favorite.
The bonded warehouse. The traditional term of a bonded warehouse is a location where goods are stored for which the goods have actually, the tax on the goods has actually not yet been paid. And that actually implies that the warehouse has got to be a very secure warehouse because you owe the government money on goods that have actually arrived inside of Australia for which you have not yet paid the tax. So that, and that tax in actual fact is duty. So goods which are duty unpaid have to be securely placed in a bonded warehouse, as opposed to all other warehouses where duty has been paid are considered generally as unbonded warehouses, if you want to follow that terminology.
Mm-hmm. So liquor, cigarettes, and the federal government has changed the laws recently about cigarettes, so tax needs to be paid in advance because there's illegal trade on tobacco. So, all good? Anybody else? Yes?
Sorry, just while I was on that topic. So Australian exporters using bonded warehouses internationally, could you explain that as well to us?
Well, if you take, so if I understand you correctly, an Australian exporter has dispatched their goods into another country, and there's an obligation within that country for duty to be paid at some point in time. So as long, and so the same, basically, the aspect of a bonded warehouse applies in a similar fashion in another country as it does in Australia. So it's got to be placed in an environment which is secure.
And for exporters of Australian wine, say, that means that it's like a duty-free shop. You don't pay duty because the product is destined to be sold abroad. The goods and services tax is applied to the act of selling, to the transaction of, and the consumer ultimately, or whoever buys it, has the responsibility of paying that. It's added on to the to the product price effectively. Kim, is that enough for that?
So I mean, it's actually seen as advantageous if you can have product in a bonded warehouse. And in fact, some of our trading partners, as part of their trade strategy, will talk to us about how they're developing these bonded warehouse facilities to encourage the export of product from Australia to their country.
Mm-hmm. Yes. But Kim, our key focus, yes, is the export bit, yeah? The fact that it's bonded and the GST is not paid at that point, it's kind of incidental. It's a benefit, yes, I know, at a cumulative level, but the objective is to export, right? Obviously.
Yeah, and it's also a big cost savings for the business. It helps you maintain your cash.
Yes.
Because you're not, paying out the cash.
Correct. Okay, so the basic warehouse functions are all around inbound and outbound management, the receiving and the shipping, value-added services. What do you think that means, value-added services? What happens in a warehouse if you do value-added services?
You're doing something to the product that adds value now for the consumer.
That's right. Sorry, your name? Luke. Try to remember the names, so certainly not cross-name people. Luke, you're absolutely right. An example, I'll give you an example. There is a third-party provider in Melbourne who is one of our solution providers at GS1, and they're called Tigers, and they have the contract for Adidas. So what they do is the shoes come in big plastic bags, and the boxes and the tissue come in different sort of containers. And what they do is they put it all together. Line the box with tissue, put the shoes in, put the promotional material, put the nice tag, put the little, World Cup logo on it, all that kind of thing, all these value-added things. So it makes the product ready for the consumer to buy it and experience kind of the marketing of that particular brand, if you know what I mean. So we've got inventory management, planning and distribution, and pick and pack. So there's a whole lot of different activities that need to occur there and need to make sure that we have the right technology to meet those sort of challenges. And everything that we can do in a warehouse can be done manually. But the more we automate, the cheaper the process that becomes, and the more accurate the process becomes. And if I was to use a very simple example, an everyday example, Earl and I are in a supermarket. We've got 100 retail items in our shopping trolleys. On Earl's side, on the checkout, so I'm just giving you an everyday example that you experience as a consumer. On Earl's side, we bring back Albert Einstein. He's back from the dead, and he's actually got a physics Nobel Prize to prove the fact that he's a genius. But we won't give him anything other than a pen and a pad, and he can do calculations really fast. On my side, we have a very bored 16-year-old busy on Facebook with a scanner. Who will transact 100 items faster? The genius, focused as he is, or the bored 16-year-old with a scanner? I think we all know the answer, right? The fact of the matter is, when it comes to menial, predictable, repetitive tasks, thank you, Earl, repetitive tasks, technology beats any human being down any time. So the more we do automatically, the better it is. So let us explain to you one or two things. Inventory management. So we have locations where we manage our inventory. And again, we can manage inventory manually. And in my past life, and I've been coming to WA, it's one of my favorite destinations. I used to work for Maya Stores, and back when I was very young, I was part of the team that experienced the transition from manual inventory management, believe it or not, to automated manual inventory. And manual inventory meant that we had people going out to the store and counting things, physically counting things. So there'll be a call halfway through your count, and you'll have to go to pick up a call because it was a customer, and then you came back to the fixture and said, oh my God, what did I count? Why didn't I count? And honestly, if I remember the sins of my youth, I don't deserve to be here really, because I have been intensely sinful in my past. I have performed the worst data crimes you are ever likely to see. So these are the sort of things that, and then I remember when we started scanning the product at the point of sale and the data started flowing in and we were making decisions based on data, we thought, wow, this is Christmas. It was fantastic that we did not have to do counts because the product was scanned and we were scanning, receiving into the stores. The consumers were scanning out as we were selling to them. So all that was, okay, there was errors. Trust me, there was errors. But the big story was this. Instead of worrying 100 things out of 100 things, like counting 100%, we were left managing 10, 20% of the exceptions. And the rest of it was just sort of looking after itself. That's what I'm talking about. Planning and distribution, which is very similar to what I said before. It's about how do you plan and how do you distribute the product in some sort of, with a sense of order. And I know sometimes I've been to warehouses where it's kind of creative chaos. Yeah? People run around and we are very reactive. Oh my God, this order needs to happen. And a whole lot of people are running around, bumping into each other, trying to achieve a particular outcome. Now, some of the technologies that I used is conveyor belts, and the conveyor belts have scanners attached. So merchandise snakes around the warehouse and gets scanned at particular strategic points. This is from Woolworths here. So how it works is the product is loaded on a conveyor belt, and then when it reaches a point where it needs to be distributed to a store, it will roll off and it will go down to a mixed pallet such as this. So we've got a couple of videos that will unpack that further as well. But fundamentally, we're talking about a computer system that scans barcodes, knows the inventory that it wants, knows the location of that particular, if you like, a pallet creation location, where the product rolls off and then it is palletized and sent out to the stores. And back in the day when I was at Coles Myer, we used to do it by store. Now they do it by aisle store. So all detergents go on a pallet. We take the pallet into the detergent aisle, unpack it, walk out again. So we don't have pallets moving around the store, because in some of the eastern states, we have 24-hour stores, open stores. So you have customers at 2 o'clock in the morning, you know, bumping into pallets and all the rest. My favorite time actually to go to the store is about that time, because you get to chat to the guys about the barcodes. What are you scanning over there, John? Oh, fantastic. Don't have a life. You'll find that out by the end of the training session and you'll feel sorry for me. So let's move on. Something like this, and I know it's not your warehouse, but how can we find anything here unless we start embedding some of the learnings of today so far, which is identifying locations, products, and having some sort of computer system to tell us where things are. A mini library, think library in your warehouse. One of the things that I remember, and I think it's a key challenge here, is picking errors. Who has picking errors in their process? What, your name, sir? Shannon, what drives do you think they're picking errors?
What drives it?
Yeah. Why do they occur?
Why do they occur? Well, we're a very fast-growing business, so we're always trying to play catch-up. So lack of procedures, lack of controls, it's all manual. So, you know, you get the guy who comes in, had a few drinks the night before, and he's half asleep, and he just forgets things. Those sorts of things. So I think procedures mainly.
Yep. Knowing my own past crimes against the supply chain, this is, don't be surprised if it happens. Expect it. If you are going to commit to manual processing, expect drama. Never-ending, unceasing waves of drama. Because that's what is going to happen. The only way to eliminate the drama is to sort of eliminate the human being that causes the drama.
Yeah. But I'd just like to add to what has already been said. And you know, one of the more frequent reasons for picking errors is also because product can look very much alike. So you've got, you actually have to have the experience in the person to be able to distinguish and recognize the products in order to then not make the picking error. And this is definitely an aspect where identification and the correct type of capture technology will allow the system to be the eyes and to ensure accuracy when something is picked and scanned and give you a wrong product as opposed to the product you're actually intending to pick. And that is really very helpful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So if you want to practice exactly what Earl is saying, next time you're at Perth Airport, trying to board a different flight. If you're flying to Melbourne, just say, I don't want to go to Melbourne, I'm going to pick the Paris one. Turn up at the Paris queue and see how far you go when you scan your boarding pass. It's a good idea, isn't it? So, these are the kind of things. Because why? Because the computer, the human being is not going to look. Half the time they're talking to you, have a lovely flight, isn't it raining, or whatever, isn't it windy today? They're relying on the computer. They scan because the computer will make a noise, will alert them at something that has gone wrong. So think about it, very good point. And part of the Amazon video that we saw was that, to put products that are very, very different within their picking location, so you know if you're picking a DVD versus a cream or something like that.
Before you move away from this particular
Sure.
slide, it's possibly also important to try and think outside of the box when it comes to picking, because most of the time we present the person to the goods, do we not?
Yes, it's
But
true.
in some industries, the goods are actually being presented to the person.
Mm-hmm.
And that might be, a quick means of actually improving the efficiency and also reducing the fatigue on the individual, having them not to walk, multiple kilometers in the course of a day, but actually having, the automated systems that actually brings the stock, almost like bringing a shelf to them, that they can, in actual fact, from a vertical stacking system, the stack comes along, or in a slightly different scenario, a robot, in actual fact, is carrying the shelf and presenting it into the pick area, and the person hardly moves apart from taking the stock off the shelf and packing it into a box. So, we're very accustomed to person to goods, but the way warehouse automation is moving is goods to person.
Mm-hmm. Or even another idea, something that, this is not my idea certainly, but when I was in many years ago, and that was with Estee Lauder in cosmetics, and that was before they were as big as they are now, but they had just arrived in Australia. What they used to do is have a weight check. So as you constructed a carton of lipsticks, the unique combinations, chances are the unique combination had a different weight. So every product was weighed, so you knew. So when you weigh the total sum, it's a little bit like what happens now when you put the groceries at the supermarket, the self-checker, that kind of principle. So think outside the box, yeah? So there are different ways of thinking about it. And can I tell you, Earl and I are not the people to tell you, James, for instance, you must do this, because we do not know your business. All we can do is we can show you, like through this presentation or future engagement with GS1 or the department, is about this is what's possible. Now you need to interpret as a business owner what is applicable and what's not applicable within your organization. Yeah? And that's, I would imagine, Kim, that's what the advisors do as well. They don't walk in with jackboots, say, we are here to run your business, yeah? They are there as trusted advisors to unpack some of the options, to give advice, yeah? Very good. So, the role of automation in the supply chain is important, speaking of robots. And I remember back in the day when I was only, or many of you will remember, the first day that I saw a robotic vacuum cleaner, I thought, oh my God, this is just unbelievable, yeah? And some of the automation, what was fancy years ago, it's not fancy anymore. Yeah, I mean, these things are, we all have, the amount of technology that we have in our mobile phones is more than what landed the space module back in 1969. Yeah, think about that. So it's about, at the end of the day, it's about speed to market, the efficiency. It's about customer service. It's about DPIRD. Who knows what DPIRD is? Yeah, is that important? Why, Luke? Is it important?
Someone doesn't want half their order turning up today and the other half in 2 weeks.
That's right, because the shelf is empty. And if the shelf is empty, that's not a good thing for your business, because your competitors will take the opportunity to sell their product at the same time. Very good. And lead times, it's all about compliance. And compliance, not because compliance for compliance sake. Compliance has a purpose. And I'll give you another very simple example, because I love using simple examples. If we were, and I know we talked about speed cameras today, because we're going down to Margaret River, so if you know the location of speed cameras, you better tell us. But the point is, if we were to remove the need for compliance onto the speed limit, and we say, right, go for your life, it'll be carnage out there, yeah? Because the majority of people will do the right thing, but many people will not. Yeah, because they're confident, because this, that, the other, they want to show off. You will have people taking outrageous risk, putting the risk at risk the life of others. So the same thing here, compliance, try not to look at compliance as a way to limit your business. I'm going to turn it on its head. I'm going to say compliance is an opportunity for you to build your business. Because compliance means rules, processes, standards, systems, technology. Okay, moving on. So the benefits we like to see this as a yin-yang thing. So Earl and I spend a lot of time with this kind of slide and thinking, how can we make it positive, negative? Anyway, so it's about reducing certain things which have a benefit, and the opportunity to increase other things which also have a benefit. So we're talking about increase in accuracy, we're talking about increase in the output rate, and increase ultimately in sales and profit, while you are reducing the handling in the warehouse. If you were to handle things multiple times, it adds cost, it adds complexity, and it opens up the opportunity for errors. Yeah? It's Chinese whispers, in other words, in the supply chain. So, and I'll tackle one thing which we will come up a number of times, the reduction of labor costs. One of the challenges, Kim, that I hear in the training sessions is, Terry, are you telling me that I should get rid of 3 people in my warehouse? Is that where we're going here? Is it? Is it where we're going? Is it about the reduction of labor costs just because we want to throw people into unemployment lines?
Might be part of it.
So what's it about? What's the connection between labour costs or labour and we're talking about automation?
You're more efficient, you reduce cost, which in turn money to
put the money towards
like your staff.
Yes. Yes. So it's not about sorry.
Investment in your own business.
Yeah, investment in your own business. You're absolutely right, Mark. That's why I got it right this time. Exactly. So it's not about, and what I say to people is, okay, you've got 3 staff, and this is the other thing. People say, I don't have the money to do this. I don't have the money. How many staff do you have running around the warehouse? Oh, we've got 4 people and they really run off their feet. Okay, great. Have you thought about how much you're paying them? And the sunk cost there, nobody considers. And nobody takes the step back to say, okay, let's rationalize this. And it's not a matter of removing the jobs of these 4 people, but let's get them to do something more productive. Get on the phone, Kim, and respond to the Singaporeans, try to beat the Belgians. That kind of approach, yeah? Very good. So Automation applies to all trading partners, and this is geeky beyond belief, so look away if you just think this is just too much. But we're talking about, what we've done is in the list, as you go down the list, it becomes more and more outrageously technologically kind of fancy. And here, up here at the top, we've got very simple scanning, material movement, loading and unloading systems, auto sortation, then you go to automated order picking, computerized exchange, and then you go right down to robotics and all the rest. Now, in this kind of process, your business is going to be somewhere today. In 5 years' time, it will be somewhere else. And in another 20 years' time, it will be somewhere else. And for those organizations who say, we're only too small, we're not going to be that fancy, we're not going to be that good, Coca-Cola started by selling soft drinks at the back of a truck in Atlanta in Georgia. I've been to the museum and I've seen the truck. Yeah? So don't think, as business owners, think big. Don't think small. And you need to think about where you are today, what are the steps that you need to implement, and how you can take that journey to increasing levels of automation as appropriate. And I've had people in the training sessions, as you know, who come and say, Tiny, yesterday actually, the innovator, who said to me, you know what, I want to do this and barcode scanning and all the rest. I said, you know what, at the moment your business needs to grow. You need to build markets. Start doing some basic things, but don't spend too much time on this, because the most important thing is to build your business. So we don't want to be unrealistic here. Yeah? Don't read this as a license, go silly and forget about your business and start thinking about how you can implement fancy barcodes here. Everything in balance. So use the technology to serve your business and improve your business.
I might just add to what Perry was talking about, and that is, it's really important to consider, benchmarking of some sort.
Yes.
Right? Measure your business in terms of how long it takes to do things, how much it's actually costing you. And then as you introduce warehouse automation, right, in the first year, in the second year, in the third year, you can actually realize, progressively as you do, as you include, a slightly higher level of automation in the way you carry out your processes, take stock of the fact that, you know what? I'm seeing improved value to my customer. I'm seeing a happier workforce. I'm seeing things that are actually being carried out more smoothly. I'm seeing the reduction in errors. So it's really important that you understand your business well enough and you're brave enough to say, I'm going to measure my business and identify with the differences, because that actually helps you see the positive benefits warehouse automation has, the effect it actually has inside of your business. And then you can basically say, yes, I can see I'm headed in the right direction. I need to do more of this. Yeah?
Very good. What does that cartoon mean to you? Yeah? And sometimes we cannot preach from the mount, sadly, because sometimes, and I'll speak personally here and from the heart, because sometimes as a trainer we have a huge academic program, a membership program, and October for us is a living hell because we work most weekends, and Earl is coming with me. The University of Sydney, we've got 3 consecutive weekends, and this is not to say, oh, poor me, but this is what happens, and we've got training sessions in between. So we tend to work about 21 days straight. And that's okay. We don't mind that. However, what the impact of that has is sometimes I'm too busy doing it and I don't have time to step back and think about it. So now I enforce myself to lock away a day or so, and it's thinking time. It's time that I need to say, right, what did we do right? And Earl and I do it often. We say, okay, what did we do right? What worked? What did not work? Let's review things. and let's take stock and create. And sometimes, you know, the assessment, which drives us nuts because we've got about 340 students like this October to assess them. So we had to introduce a level of automation in what we do. And believe it or not, by taking that one day off to actually workshop solutions, it saved us 4 days in doing this endless assessment. Yeah? So this is a personal, real example with my job. So we're talking about 4 things: people, processes, technology, and data. And these are some of the problems that we have in deliveries. So it could be no labeling, incorrect deliveries. You can see damaged goods, data errors. Do you experience any of those? Have you ever done a root cause analysis to find out why the problem is there or why it has occurred? Or option 1, are you kind of like proactive or are you reactive? Any ideas? Are you proactive or reactive?
Probably both. So we've got a pretty structured non-conformance system in place. So anything like this will be raised as an action.
Right.
So that's reactive in a sense. It's already occurred. But as a part of that, we do identify long-term preventative action. So we identify root cause and then take proactive action.
Does that work?
In many cases it does. Where there's human element, it doesn't. Like the wrong picking, for example, is one that.
So.
Unless it becomes extremely inefficient because you've got someone checking somebody else's picking before it goes on.
That's right. So let's have computers check what we do. Yeah, that's kind of the obvious answer. And what Earl, you mentioned before, you unpacked that, some of the technologies that we can use. So do you have any technology in the pick and pack process? Or is it purely manual?
It's purely manual. We've only just started with scanning, but we're only doing that for stock taking at this stage and manufacturing release
Okay.
of product.
Anybody else? Guys, what about you? Are you in the same business, by the way?
No.
Separate businesses, okay. Yes, sir.
We don't have a John.
Thank you, John.
Not a great deal of issues. It's all pretty much manual, but we've only got sort of 10 main sort of SKUs or that. We probably have more damaged stock due to transport issues or that. So that's our main
Okay, very good.
issue of returns or anything. That's not so much.
Guys at the back there?
Yeah, every single one of those.
Every single one of
At
those?
times, yeah. Definitely.
Okay, very good. All right, well, this is common, and these lists of problems are as a result of a whole lot of things. Some of it is data, some of it is physical, like damaged goods. However, we need to think about, are there any mechanisms or anything we can do to overcome this? So we're going to move on to see whether ultimately these are symptoms or causes.
And I might just add before you continue that all of these problems really affect the cost of running the business.
Yes, and or the market share, and or the opportunity, and or their reputation, a whole lot of things. Absolutely, very good. All right, so one way that things can go wrong, and we'll give you an example of a technology coming to the rescue of something, is if I am a supplier to Coles and I have a range of, 30 products that I sell in there, and I give them a product list and they enter the details of the product list in their computer. When you do this manually, you tend to have errors because people make data entry errors. And we'll pick one of what's behind the previous slide. So let's say I send my product listing to my retailer manually and they data enter it. So they data enter the product, instead of being 380 grams, they are entering it as 830 grams. So they switch two numbers around. So we place an order for 830 gram product. Now, I receive it and I think, I don't even make an 830 gram product. I can't deliver that. So we query it. and we adjust the purchase order. So there's a string of delays there. But sometimes what happens, and this I know for a fact, is through my life with Maya and Coles, was that sometimes the supplier would say, oh, these idiots, you know, we've told them a million times, you know, this is not the product, this 380 product. Send it to them. I can't be bothered ringing them again. So we send the incorrect product. The goods are delivered. I don't know what's going on here. And the buyer receiving the stock. So this is not the buyer who's made the mistake. We're talking about other people in the warehouse receiving the product that is 380 grams, and in fact their order says 830 grams. So they say, that's not what we've ordered. They do not know the narrative, they do not know the story behind the scene, so therefore they reject the product. And then there's an incorrect return of goods, and there is an adjusted delivery. The net effect, it all comes together, crushing down on number 11. Am I saying something that happens to you?
Yeah, in a past life.
Mm-hmm. Very good.
That used to drive me absolutely insane.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And the bottom line is that number 11, the delayed settlement, is the most toxic out of those steps, because that means no money. That means that the invoice is hanging until it's resolved. And I had the situation with Maya where we would have, let's say, I remember, well, there's many instances, one was specifically a sleepwear supplier, so the pajamas and all that nightgowns, and they had about 30 lines. The order was about $1 million because it was a winter drop for the winter season, and one line worth about $4,000 was hanging $1 million. And the supplier was virtually beside themselves, and they rang me up and they said, you know what, I'm happy to give Maya $4,000 worth of merchandise, release the rest of it. But then of course, it wasn't that I was being nasty, but I said, look, I can't do it because we will get audited and they're going to say, where did that $4,000 go? Yeah? So you know exactly what I'm talking about. So this is kind of a vicious circle that leads nowhere. One way to overcome this little problem is, and we're lucky to have Earl, who is the subject matter expert here in data synchronization, is the ability to onboard the product in a database, a centralized database, such as Facebook, a little bit like how Facebook or all the social media, LinkedIn are. So what you do is you publish the information in an environment where multiple trading partners can share it. This is a level of technology that's been used over, the last 10 years or so, and it is quite successful, and it improves the disconnect between the suppliers and the buyers in the very nature of the product. What is the nature of the product? And we have the purchase order, which is accurate. We have the ASN, so you can see here some of the things that we talked about in the Woolworths video. So ASNs, advanced dispatch devices, advanced shipping notices, SSCCs, which are a unique identifier for the pallet. So those technologies all come together to make sure that the physical goods flow plus the data flow meet, and therefore we can pay the supplier on time. So the challenges, and this can get a little bit gory, I guess, as we go on, but the challenges here are about the processes, the people, so we will unpack one at a time. One of the key challenges here is people, and one of the key challenges is vested interest. Example, I run a warehouse with 12 people. Don't tell me you're going to replace those 12 people with 3 people with scanners. I'm a general manager. Where's my team gone? That kind of thing. A vested interest into the process. The lack of capability, skills and knowledge, which sometimes, honestly, we try to fudge it. And that is our own insecurity. I don't know this stuff. So if we were to do it, how would I do it? Because now with a manual process, I'm the king of the castle. Whereas if this automation, that will show up my lack of understanding. We tried this before and did not work, and I hear that a lot. Terry, we tried scanning back in 1986. It did not work. We're not going to try it again. The casual workforce. We have too many casuals. It's difficult for us to train them. And there's others as well, and I've already mentioned the hidden cost of doing manual work. And the resistance to change is something which kind of is a little bit un-Australian. From the point of view that as a country we've started with nothing, you know, or we had indigenous people and all the rest, but from the European colonisation side and afterwards, we've actually progressed fairly rapidly. And we've taken risks and we've embraced change. Australia is one of the countries, I think, Earl, that absorbs, like smartphones and all these technologies, we're sort of quick off the mark to absorb these things. And processes. Process for process sake. Have you ever had the situation, it's happened to me, and at GS1 it happens, this is the way we do things. And then you ask why. The general manager told me to do this. Why? Yeah? Have you had this situation that things are done because the way they're done? And at the end of the day, we are talking about processes driving the technology and not the technology driving the processes. It's not because I've got a spare scanner, I've got to find something for the scanner to do. I've got a business problem that I need to resolve, and I need to use technology to fix the problem. The scanner is the tool, is not the purpose. And we deal with a lot of IT people, and the challenge is sometimes these individuals view the technology that is the purpose in itself. Yeah? ERP is, you know, installing an ERP is the objective. No, the objective is for the ERP, for the technology to become a servant to the business and resolve those issues. A little bit about technology and having new with legacy is actually quite a challenge. So if you have existing technology, how do you upgrade that technology to take advantage of latest technologies, and how you're going to move forward? So one thing that might surprise you is if you have nothing, it's good. Because it's an opportunity to install the latest, yeah? You're not constrained by legacy, you don't have all that background baggage. Part of the challenges that we had back in the days of Colesmeyer was a lot of the legacy, and you know this, Earl, having worked for a large organisation. When you've got legacy systems and systems that were onboarded back in the 1980s, 90s or year 2000, and now 20 years later, you want to keep business as usual while you're introducing new changes. That can be a challenge. So you don't, when you have nothing sometimes, it's a good way to start. To say, right, we've got nothing, so here's an opportunity.
Yeah, another good example to highlight at this juncture is the fact that if you compare the advancement that's actually taken place in healthcare, in the adoption of automation, against what's actually taken place in retail. Healthcare, in actual fact, in the last 10 years has caught up with what it took retail 40 to 50 years to achieve. So they never adopted a lot of the technology, a lot of automation, and you know, some of the enabling technologies that we're talking about here. Technologies like, you know, unique identification, electronic commerce, data synchronization, product track and trace. But they've actually realized the need, and the best thing about coming in late, if you like, is everyone else has actually gone through the road of hard knocks and bruises, made all the mistakes, learned from their mistakes, and industries are actually coming in and observing. You know what? They're at a stage of maturity, which if you have nothing, you actually enter the game so much more quickly and effectively, and you've actually caught up with many, many years of struggle that other industries have actually encountered.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And thank you, Earl. And here, use readily available technologies. Motivate people to use things that they love. So a smartphone. One way, you mentioned before, the person who's half asleep or whatever or not. Motivate people to do things that they understand why it's happening. that the technology is at a level engaging, and people that you can measure because they do things automatically, you can actually measure, and instead of punish the bad, reward the good. Yeah, that's another way of doing it, because I know sometimes getting staff can be a bit of a challenge. So, you know, we need to think about that in a world where people are easily bored and technology is there to challenge people all the time. We need to find ways of gamifying. I know it's an awful training word, but gamifying, introducing a level of gamification in the working experience. And this is in effect, you know what I mean? What those, what the Amazons and all the rest, what they do, and a lot of times even fast food companies, you know, they introduce, how do you engage the consumer? Let them play a game. Yeah? So I know it sounds a little bit out there, and I'm not saying that you turn your job into a joke, but think about if you have an issue with staff and how to motivate them, think about how you can use alternative methodologies, alternative technologies to motivate them and keep them interested. Earl, did you want to add to something? You're okay?
I just wanted to say that, I mean, you know, what a lot of research in actual fact has highlighted the fact that, you know, we are dealing with a different type of individual when we think about the millennials. So the people that actually, you know, are born in the 21st century, they are very interactive. They need to do things that actually keeps their attention. Their attention spans are actually very short. So what you actually find is that, you know, we should try and use the technologies that they favor, incorporating that in the way we work and the way we operate our business, because we have to deal with them. A lot of us are getting older, and we're getting a younger workforce, you know, replacing the aged workforce that we have right around Australia, and in actual fact right around the entire world. So we have to understand the nature, you know, of the newbies, and really what will actually motivate them and help us retain them within our businesses. You know, if that's the skill set, you know, we actually have to develop and basically utilize within our business.
And to take a step further, give them a voice in your business sometimes. Get a couple of young people in and say, how would you do it? Freddie, you love technology. Give me an idea. How would you think about it? Yeah. So think about the alternatives here. One thing to also consider is bells and whistles cost. So I'm going to go against my argumentation before to say implement technology, 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 and I'm going to say implement the right technology at the right place, at the right pace for your business. This is not, and try not to get carried away with fancy consultants from for technology companies who come say, oh, we can do this, and we can do this, and we can do this. Yeah, you can easily get carried away. So don't go too far, implement the right technology for your organization at the right time. The data is all about, I guess, making sure that the data can be exchanged. And one thing that does not allow the data to be exchanged if it is based on private numbering conventions. Simply enough, who uses in here international GTINs, global trade item numbers, for the GT number to identify their products? Or who uses a private internal number like an SKU number? SKUs? 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 Now, if you're starting to share that SKU, does that mean anything to anybody else outside your business? Is that a problem? SKU has a place in the financial structure and all the rest of our organization. I'm not saying get rid of them. What I'm saying is start incorporating the GTIN, the global number against the product, so you can start then building a level of innovation, a level of business analytics, and exchanging that data with your trading partners in order to understand the sales pattern, in order to understand what's happening out there in the field. Amelia, you will let me know when a break is required? Okay. What about if we go in about 5 minutes?
There'll be morning tea delivered, I think, about 10:30.
Okay, great. All right, we're going ahead then to 10:30. So, so data based on global standards. And what the online retailers like Amazon, Google, eBay, all those companies are doing is they're embracing the GS1 standards. Do you think they're doing it A, because they love GS1, or B, it serves a fundamental business need? Obviously. Why? Because they're collecting data on all of us. The best way to identify things that are moving in the supply chain is to give it a number, to give it a global number. Because if I was to unpack your SKUs, chances are I'll find duplications here. There'll be duplicate numbers. One thing, for instance, 4 numbers might apply to one product or vice versa. There's no unique correlation between the individuality of the product and the individuality of the number. So, what does this mean? What does this mean? Data is the new oil.
Data is very valuable when everyone's out to get it.
Very good, James. Excellent. So, and that's one level. What other levels can you think in this?
Whoever who has got the control over data will have the power.
Yes, control over data is power. Yes?
People are mining it.
People are mining it. Very good. Excellent. You're catching on that metaphor. What else needs to happen to data once you mine it? Traded? Sorry? Refined. Spot on. Perfect. So, data is like oil. It needs to be found, extracted, purified or refined, and packaged up in a product that has a purpose. So think about the strategic use of data. If you are to say, give me the data, well, that means nothing. What data? So start thinking about how in your business, what type of data do you need? And it might be DIFOT. It might be productivity of the staff. It might be errors in the warehouse. So unless you define what you're going to talk about, you won't be able to get an answer. And the other thing is, start thinking about using global standards in the collection of this data. Very good. Excellent. So, data ultimately supports automation. And when we're talking about data, we are talking about 3 different ways that data manifests itself within our organization. What do you think is master data? Sorry? Yeah, or let me grab a product from the back. Excuse me, I'll be back in a tick. Right, this is a bottle of water from Woolworths. It's a home brand. So what's master data relating to this product? The brand, very good. Things that do not change as I produce the product. The brand, what else?
Barcode.
Yes, the GTIN, Global Trade Item Number. This black and white thing here. And what else? Does not change as I produce the product. Yep. The height, the weight, that it's 1 litre, 1.5 litres, and that it's water. Very good. So, master data is data that does not change as I produce the product. Very good. Another attribute of the data might be dynamic or attribute data. What could that be?
So just before we move away from master
Yep.
data, you can also consider master data as being relatively static.
Yes. Very good, thank you. Earl. So what's dynamic data? That changes as I produce the product. Best before date, use by date, batch numbers, and so forth. Excellent. And what would be transactional data? Right. Let's hold on to price for a minute. Yeah, absolutely, yes. The procurement cycle. Stock on hand, stock on order, sales, all that type of thing. Price can be in any of those 3, depending on the context. Let me give you an example. The price of this product would be static, so it would be master data. But there are products in the marketplace, for instance, seafood. Yesterday we had a lady who does seafood, and they do lobsters and prawns and a whole lot of things, and she said the prices are super dynamic. They're not static, like a bottle of water. Yeah? Or it might be purely transactional, an auction price. If you go out to, I don't know, a sale yard and cattle, you know, all that is done on sale prices or auction prices, yeah? Very good. So we're talking about, ultimately, and I'll return this back to the front. So we're talking about, ultimately, about putting together data that gives us the compliance, and the compliance, as we mentioned before, is the opportunity for us to automate and link in to the benefits of the supply chain, and that could be default, the chain of responsibility, delivery windows, and so forth. The process, which ultimately means about the efficiency and the effectiveness. So, because it kind of looks a bit fancy, you know, all these graphics and all the rest, but I'm going to simplify it. I do the right thing by my trading partners, great. Next thing, by doing that, I'm actually becoming more efficient and effective myself because I'm meeting the requirements over there. And finally, all that returns, the bottom line at the end of it all is the operational process, my ability to react to traceability events, track and trace, and also at the end of the day, customer service. How happy are my customers? Do I get return business, or do I fail to get return business because I'm not able to make them happy? They might love the product, and I think that story before was very telling. They might love the product, but they may not be able to do business with me because I'm in a different century to them. So just again, in summary, the purpose of today is not necessarily to turn your businesses into mega multinationals and Amazon.com that you have the latest robotics and technology. This is about giving you the skills, the capability to deliver into automated warehouses, to be able to deal with those challenges and make sure that you have the right technology and the right approach to service those deals, those businesses. And to pick up before, James, what you said I think is very telling. It's not, I think, the right thing for any business to say, I cannot service that customer because I can't deal with their requirements, yeah? That's what I'm sort of trying to say. Let's try to remove that obstacle and make sure that people can deliver into into businesses irrespective of what they do, and we have a level of compliance. So before we move to the next thing, I just want to tell you that today we are using some videos from other GS1 organizations, and we have two, GS1 Sweden, which is coming up, and GS1 Switzerland. And we are, again, I hasten to add, we're not asking you to become a Swedish company. We're not asking you to become a Swiss company. But because Australia, we are a fairly advanced economy, we are very similar to many European countries. And some of the things that you'll see on the video are some of the challenges that those retailers are finding from their suppliers and their inability to connect the dots and make sure that the automation occurs. So let me see if this video will play automatically. Ah, very good.
Using a barcode that conforms to the global GS1 standard and contains correct information is a prerequisite for efficient flow of goods and information. To demonstrate how important good barcode quality and placement are, we will now follow a product flow from warehouse to an ICA store. We start with a visit to ICA's distribution center in Helsingborg. ICA's Helsingborg facility is one of the most modern of its type in Europe. The level of automation is high, especially for groceries. The fewer number of hands that must be involved in the supply chain, the greater the efficiency. There is a lot that affects handling in a warehouse, but there are two areas where there is considerable potential to improve the flow. And it is in the interest of everybody in the distribution chain out to the store that the flow is as efficient as possible. This is about the labels and the pallets that arrive at the Helsingborg warehouse. Let's begin by looking at the labels. Pallets of goods arriving at the warehouse are scanned automatically. But in most cases, automatic scanning does not work because the label with the barcode is incorrectly placed. Perhaps it's missing, possibly has the wrong information, or the wrong format, or has had another label stuck on top of it. Those pallets that are rejected by automatic scanning have to be scanned manually in order to get into the warehouse. Every time this happens, capacity is reduced. This is what it looks like when everything works as it should. If we speed up the film, things become clearer. The pallets enter the system and do not need to wait to be manually scanned. When it isn't working properly, it can look like this. Queues form, several pallets are waiting, and the tracks that transport the goods further into the grocery store run empty. The barcode must contain information according to the GS1 128 standard. There must be an SSCC as well as the number of cases on the pallet, the best before date if it is required, and a batch number if this is possible. That is, when there is only one batch on the pallet. The label must be at least 50 millimeters in from the edge and between 400 and 800 millimeters from the base of the pallet. And this is what it looks like on the short end. Today, most of the pallets that arrive have to be scanned manually, which means that the potential for improvement here is very large. We head off to ICA's central warehouse in Västerås, where the goods are handled manually. The cases are picked off the pallet and scanned to ensure that the right products are delivered to the right ICA store. The staff scan the barcode and check that the package agrees with the order form from the store. The stock level is updated. The barcode must be easy to find and easy to scan. If the barcode does not work or if it's incorrectly placed, much time is wasted, and time is money. In addition, there is a risk that the case gets damaged if it must be opened in order to scan the barcode on a consumer package. This is another unnecessary cost, which can be avoided if the barcode is correct from the beginning. In worst case, the outcome is loss of traceability of the case or the wrong product being delivered to the store. When the goods arrive at the ICA store, the packages are scanned again and checked against the order to ensure that the right products in the right quantities have been delivered. When you as a consumer go shopping, you want it to be efficient and quick. You also want to come home with exactly the goods you plan to buy. When a barcode cannot be read at the checkout, more time is wasted. Barely 2% of all barcodes are unreadable, according to a Swedish study carried out in 3 Swedish retail stores where all items were scanned. A queue builds up. This is frustrating for the consumer, who might in the end decide not to buy the chosen product, or choose a competitive product in order to get to the checkout quicker, or use self-scanning. In the worst case, the poor barcode quality will perhaps result in the consumer leaving the store without paying for the product. For many consumers, getting the right information on the receipt is important. A correct barcode which is readable at the checkout ensures this. Since the barcodes follow GS1's standards, all actors in the value chain communicate in a consistent way and all information can be used correctly by everybody involved. If you work with barcodes, you can use GS1 Sweden's Validu services to check readability, content and quality of your barcodes. You will find more information on our websites. Correct barcodes create a win-win situation and your company increases its business value through reduced manual work, efficient traceability of products, right goods to the right store, and correct sales reports for all goods scanned at the checkout.
everything that you saw there on the video might apply, of course, to Swedish businesses, but ultimately, the process that you saw there, the automatic receipt of pallets through a warehouse, is what happens here in Australia. There's no difference. And the other thing is, the standards that we are talking about are global. So it doesn't matter if you are going to export your product, say, to Hungary, because there's GS1 Hungary. Look up the website, actually. And there's GS1 organizations around the world which we all do the same thing. So by applying the barcodes, the barcode types specifically to the retail product or other non-retail situations, it's the same thing. So there's no difference in the way the global standards work. And this is why French champagne you can buy at the supermarket here without different barcodes. This is why Australian product is sold abroad, and this is why the Belgians selling chocolate in Belgium, because in Singapore, because at the end of the day we're talking about the same global standards that are being applied. And I guess the Department of Industry has decided to act now and take a level of urgency in this particular workshop today, is about the fact that the faster technology grows, the faster it keeps growing. So we've seen all, I think, within our lifetimes, an acceleration in the way technology is implemented and introduced. So therefore, and also industry disruptors. So we're talking about cost pressures, we're talking about evolving technology, we're talking about competition, and we are talking about the partner requirements. So while some of you may be thinking, well, this is clearly not for me, I'm too small, I'm not a big player in this game. At the end of the day, the distribution channels, be they Woolworths or Coles or Amazon or whatever, will be increasingly automated. And what we want to say is, hey guys, listen, there might be a day that even the corner milk bar will be asking for a level of automation, because this is how they trade with a whole lot of other ways. So this is about introducing and getting used to the level of automation that we are going to see.
I might just add the fact that you can also take the perspective of warehouse automation from whether or not you are, as a business, are seeking a comparative advantage or a competitive advantage. Mm-hmm. And that will actually help you recognize, you want to make a difference in the way, you're producing your product, for example, to the quality of the service you're providing to a customer, and to differentiate yourself by virtue of how you've actually adopted technology, as opposed to just being comparable and basically staying in the game, so that you are meeting up with the compliance requirements of other suppliers like you to the same customer.
Mm-hmm. Yes, spot on. So we are talking about here the customers having a certain level of expectations, and those expectations might be around the quality, it might be around the accuracy, and it might be around elimination or reduction of manual processing. At the end of the day, the customer has an expectation, and we need to ensure that we get there. Now, why should you care? What's the point? You could easily say, well, I don't care. And it's your prerogative to say you don't care, but we are seeing now increasingly, and Amazon is an example, for instance, where a lot of small, very small, and we talk about tiny suppliers to Amazon, see it as a window to the world and say, okay, I cannot be in Frankfurt, in Vienna, and in Tokyo, but my product can be via Amazon, so therefore I'm going to enter that space. And if you go to Amazon and you say, you know what, I want to run this very manually, I don't care about your barcodes, I don't care about your automation, do you want my product or not? What do you think Amazon will say? Yeah? And this is a situation where I had one of our members, now members, but a company in the Sunshine Coast in Queensland, where they went to Amazon. They got some barcodes for a reseller. So these are barcodes that come from illegal sources, and copied barcodes. And they thought they were doing the right thing and bought the online barcodes. And they went to Amazon, and Amazon said, we reject your product because Amazon rang us. The number was duplicated because there was another product in Amazon, Rainbow Puzzles, that was using that particular number legitimately. So we rang GS1 Canada, long story, I know, but we validated the fact that the product was legitimately used by another company, the actual brand owner, and the people who, this company that obtained the illegal barcodes had nowhere to go. So they felt trapped and they rang me. I remember it was a mercy dash up to the Sunshine Coast to help them out of this conundrum because Amazon was not going to sell the product. Big W rejected the product for the same reason. They had no supply chain channels. So they had to think about, okay, now we need to go small. So we need to scale down our business and start selling to the small rats and mice in industry and tone down our business because of the solution of what we've done with the barcodes. And when they rang me rather sheepishly, I said to them, no, don't reduce your business, grow your business. Let us help you. So they obtained a legal membership from GS1. We gave them a number range, applied it to the product. Okay, they had to waste some packaging, but that's the price. But at the end of the day, they're onboarded themselves and now they are able to actually trade globally. So this is about not restriction. You should care because your business should not be restricted to market access, should not be restricted to product ranging, and should not be restricted to additional costs and lengthy manual processes. And can I tell you something else? I've worked, as I've told you already, with Coles, and what used to happen with Coles was, back in the day, they don't do this anymore, but there was a situation where we had some suppliers who had a sweetheart deal with the buyers because the buyers loved the product and they had a good relationship. And the buyer would say, okay, we can accept this product from this supplier manually. Now, a business such as Coles and Woolworths, what they do is the people at the warehouse, they've got their own cost center and they've got their own profitability targets and their own efficiency targets. So what happens is, if I'm the supply chain manager in the warehouse here in WA, I say, okay, buyer, that's fine. I'll manually process the order for your mate. Good. However, I'm going to charge you back the cost because I'm not going to wear it. He's your mate. Yeah? You need to pay for your mate. I'm okay with that, but I'm not going to pay for your mate. So if it's going to cost me, if the automatic processing costs me a cent per unit, and the manual will cost me 25 cents per unit, I will add, how many units do we process? 10,000 units by 25 cents. Here's the bill, Mr. Buyer. We'll take that from your first margin. So in a way, that was a situation that allowed people to allow manual processing, but the thing is that it became very unprofitable. So when the buyers, and I remember specific situations, were going through their annual review, the company was saying, well, you're not profitable. We keep absorbing all this cost for manual processing and we don't see the back of this. So, and I know some of you may have good relationships and all the rest, but as time goes on, this is going to become much, much more difficult to become sustainable. Very good. So where we want to be now is we want to understand the individual status quo. Earl, did you want to say something? You're okay? Yeah. So we are going to do a little bit of an evaluation and hopefully help you understand where you're at. So we've got one thing that you need to consider, the level of maturity. Where are you? Are you a beginner, intermediate, experienced, or expert? And this is what you need to think about. Levels of automation, data collection, global supply standards, and self-optimization. Now, those two things at the bottom are fancy, I know, but we have to give you the spectrum of development here. So we do have people who have a level of automation, but we do have people like Amazon, for instance, at the other end, and you're not nowhere near that, but where they have computers managing their business. And what this self-optimization and auto-correcting capability means, does anybody know what it means? Can anybody guess? Okay, that is when the computer gathers the data, the computer has logic within it and resolves problems. And I'll give you a real life example every day, and it involves Uber. I live in Melbourne and I travel a lot, as you know, as you can guess from my job, and I take an Uber from Melbourne Airport to my home, which is in the southeastern suburbs. And the fare is about $65, minimum $64, $68. And that one day, I took an Uber, and the guy, and I knew that this was happening, but he said, oh, the roads are closed, and he took me around a couple of loops and all the rest, not knowing, because I had said nothing, where I was from and all the rest. And the bill came to $95. So I did not know what to do then, and I thought, I'm going to complain to Uber. But anyway, in the Uber app, if you don't know already, but I'm telling you, what you could do is you can challenge your bill. So I pressed the button, challenge, do you want to challenge your bill? Yes. And then he came back and said, we have analysed millions of trips that happened from this location to that location, and we think we owe you $25. So they determined, it happened so quickly, there was no way a human would have reacted this way. They wouldn't have even had time to read the email, let alone, understand what happened there. So they said to me, in 48 hours, we will make a determination. Sure enough, they issued me a refund. So this is an example of self-optimization and auto-correcting capability. That is, the database looks at lots and lots of data, says this is clearly outside the standard deviation. Yeah? So it's a statistical analysis. Now, if I was challenging $1, they'll probably reject it and say, no, this is within the thing of tolerance. But because it was well outside the tolerances, I ended up with a refund without, I believe, no human being looking at this. Yeah? So this is an understanding of how ultimately, and this is what, like even when I showed you that video from Amazon, this is where the computer is learning and improves the process as it goes on. So that's what that last one means. So in your packs, we've got two things. So we've got here the level of maturity. So what's on the board here about where do you think you are? So it's a matter of ticking a box. Where do you think you are? Am I, for levels of automation, am I a beginner because I've got nothing? Yeah, sure, tick the box. We are not going to judge you. We are not going to collect these things. We're not going to evaluate them. You're not going to be marked. This is for your own personal use to reflect. So how far are you within that particular level of maturity? And then the supply chain survivor map is a way of you placing elements of your supply chain on this map and understanding where you are. A little bit like the TV show, how well are you going to survive in this jungle, yeah? So, for instance, these are some of the questions, the self-assessing questions, so they're in the pack. How well, for instance, do you manage your inward goods? How well do you manage your finished goods? So you can take some of those questions or create your own and reflect, or where are you in relation to the map? Are you on solid ground? It means you have a level of automation. Are you on the sandy beach? Meaning we're doing a little bit, but kind of it's all a bit shaky. Or are you utterly adrift at sea? Yeah? Or if you're at the peak, we do this, we've got it down pat, everything is working well. So I guess, and it goes back to your level of maturity, whether you're experienced, expert, intermediate, or beginner. So let me give you an example, and I'll use a single example here. So how well do I do stock take? Let's say the last. Now, if I do stock take utterly manually, which means there's no process, it's kind of at some point, oh, we haven't done a stock take. Hey, Mary, Johnny, can you run out and count the stock? That kind of thing. And oh, where's the paper? Okay, use the back of this recycled paper, yeah, and just jot down what's out there in the warehouse. You're in the sea. You can't sugarcoat this. You're in the sea. It's ad hoc. There's no process. There's no standards. There's no description of the product. You write down yellow, so many, blue, so many. If you have a level of automation though, for instance, if you have a standard operating procedure and that is supported by a scanner, you mentioned before you're doing stock take. So you would be either on solid ground or sandy beach. And the difference for you would be if this is a standalone, so if the scanner produces a report of your stock holding and then somebody does data enter, the information somewhere else, or if the information does not flow accurately, you could be on sandy ground. Because you're doing something right, but it's not fully integrated. So it's a bit shaky, yeah? If the person who does the data entry is no longer there, or they move, or whatever, or they don't understand what they're doing, you could be shaky, because you might be doing the right thing here, collecting the right information, but it might be data entered incorrectly, yeah? So these are the sort of things. Am I making sense with everybody? How you want to use this? Work with your neighbors, with people next to you. So use your map, and then put down about 3 or 4 things. You don't need to overthink this. Put 2 or 3 things that are important to you from the list on the map, and then where are you in relation to that map? So reflect where you are.